and welcome to this special episode. He's just given me a name, Chai Biscuit with Boria. Whatever you want to call it, but a very dear friend, somebody who inspires us a lot, Ravichandran Ashwin. Thank you very much for speaking to me. You know, I think I'm meeting you after 2.5 years and COVID. So the first question is, this is physical, which is a rarity these days. And I've got to straight dive into it. You are still in a bubble. You're moving to another bubble. You'll get into another bubble in South Africa. Give me insights, because I've been in bubbles in Tokyo as well. But how tough? I mean, give me a detailed insight.
So, I mean, I'll just take you back a little bit about the thought process first. My thought process, everybody is different. When COVID struck, we came back from New Zealand after that series against New Zealand. I played the first test, didn't play the second test. Physically in okay sort of a shape. I was still trying to figure out how my injuries were happening, how should I come out of them, what are the best ways and means. And then we come back from New Zealand. I'm thinking about how to chart up my future plans, and bang, COVID struck. So I was playing a club game in Chennai after I landed, and then COVID struck. So nobody knew what to expect, and all of a sudden the IPL got cancelled. We thought, okay, maybe the IPL. Look, in the past also IPL has been pushed and prodded, like with election days, we go to another country and all that, but not even for a second did I imagine that we won't play cricket for 6 months. I was telling all club cricketers in Chennai in and around, saying that this is going to be big. I think we are taking it really lightly here, but we should also understand that the pandemic is going to be here. So we need to be careful and cautious. But little did I know that the next 6 months we'll have no cricket. The IPL got pushed. The IPL got, they said indefinitely we are going to push it. So indefinitely the IPL got pushed, and for the first month, I was just chatting with my wife and parents, and we got stuck up in the bubble inside the house. And I was telling her, look, I'm 34 here. Like I was 33, 34 then, and I was telling her, like, I don't know what to do, because 3 years ago I was playing all formats of the game. Then suddenly I got pushed to one format of the game. If the pandemic goes on for any longer, I'll be 35 by the time the pandemic pushes out, and I don't know what people are going to think, what direction they will take, because at the end of the day, game is all about perceptions. And if you had told me at the end of the 6-month journey that you will only be living inside hotels if you want to play cricket, I would have taken it with both hands, to be very, very honest, because I just loved the game, and I felt how dearly I missed playing the sport. And for having missed playing the sport, I had to wake up every morning telling myself, look, I need to train as if tomorrow is going to be a better day, and tomorrow I will be playing cricket, and I need to give it one best bite at the cherry. So I used to go train morning, evening, afternoon, irrespective of the times. I used to wake up every day at 5 o'clock, thinking as if I've gone back to my 8-year-old self, trying to train in a fashion where the excitement came back. It was hard, and it is continuing to be hard. A lot of people from the outside talk about bubble, and they precisely think that we stay in 5-star hotels and the life is great, hunky-dory. But it is hard. Every day you wake up to the same 4 walls, same routine life, same, sort of breakfast in the morning. You're hanging around in the same environment, meeting the same people, missing your family, missing your hometown, whatever said and done. Chennai can be hot, but Chennai is my hometown. I love going back there. Haven't been there in 7 months. But if this is the trade-off I need to give in order to do something that I love, happily doing it.
You know, it's fascinating to hear that it's ultimately is a trade-off between passion and what you have been pushed to because of the pandemic. 2 things I want to ask. You look leaner. I mean, again, I've not met you physically for 2.5 years face to face. What have you done to yourself? Because you look leaner, you look hungrier. Even in Dubai, I was commentating when you were bowling during the World Cup. You looked in shape to me. Give me how did you deal with the pandemic? What was your routine? How did you work this out?
Like I said, every single day I used to get up telling myself, look, I think I've spoken about it to a certain extent with, Harsha Bogle in the break that we had during the pandemic, about what are the things that sort of, left me, like many a times we talk about what we achieve in life, but we also have somewhere somewhere in our heart about what we couldn't, what we missed. So it sort of hurt me that I couldn't accomplish certain things in what I did. Yes, as a sportsman, you always live and die by the sword. You are engulfed by criticism. You want to overcome that every single day. That really keeps you going. But as far as I'm concerned, there are certain things I wanted to leave behind, and I felt inside me a lot of people wrote me off. I cannot even think of who and how and when. But every time I used to walk into club games in Chennai, and you used to hear the murmurs. I used to put in the hard yards. When I play a club game, it's a club game. I'm trying to learn. I'm trying to do well for the club. I'm having the best interest of my team. And I would hear murmurs about people saying, this guy is coming and playing because his international career is done. He's finished. So, and it used to, I used to keep hearing these things. Sometimes it's easy to laugh off. Sometimes it hurts. But then for me, I used to wake up in the pandemic every single day telling myself, look, it doesn't matter what people think. It doesn't matter if people believe in me or not. But this particular cricketer, this particular character has something left. And this is not how I want to live. If I leave on terms where I cannot achieve something, I've failed on the field, that's fine. But physically, I should not leave any stone unturned. And it used to be a hard battle. I used to train twice in a day, then work on my skill within spaces that I had in my house, in the terrace and stuff like that. I used to do a bit of online courses on how well you can practice within the house. Trying and using a sock ball, trying using cricket balls to get the seam position right. I started training bowling in gym exercise positions. I reviewed over 3 to 10 dietitians using LinkedIn as a platform and different platforms, because that's one thing that I had not nailed on in my life. I felt about how much a dietitian can help me get better. And eventually I did find a couple of dietitians who were enabling to get my protein intake higher. Some of them told me how allergens worked. So yeah, the journey is, I'm definitely eating better, definitely training better, and definitely more positive inside my head.
I was having a chat with Bharat, and he says the uniqueness about you and compared to others is, he says the angles, the plans, the thing that goes into Ashwin makes Ashwin who he is. An insight into that?
I love talking about the game to a degree where people actually find like a lot of people bring through my life have said that I overthink, and I agree, I overthink, but as an individual inside myself, I can break down this overthinking to a very, very small fragment, because I think about the game like I realize that I think about the game like no one else does. A lot of people might want to switch off from from watching the game after they've played it, after they've practiced. But I keep watching myself bowling. I keep watching how other batters are going about their business. For example, when Steve Smith came to India and he had that wonderful series in 2016-17.
I thought I was not supposed to ask that question.
No, I'm not going to get into the entire intricacy of it, but ever since 2016-17, I watched Steve Smith like a madman, like literally obsessed over how he made those runs, what he does differently. Why am I not catching certain small cues? See, I think as a bowler, what makes me get those wickets are not my skill or not just my plans. It's that very innate understanding of what a batsman is doing at the last moment and change my bowling according to it at the point of release. And with Steve Smith, I found out that I was not picking those cues that he was giving me. So I had to like get really obsessed with him. There is a movie in Tamil. I'm not sure it's come out in. It'll come on Setmax very surely, very soon, I'm sure. Where they say, "Tell me who your enemy is. I'll tell you your character." Generally, we say, "We'll show your friends. I'll tell you who you are." But that really stuck out to me. Like I connect movies with life, what the storyline is saying, and all that. And I realized that I must make obsession of people that I'm not able to get the better of. So I make a very, very clear and earnest attempt of the big dogs and opposition, go to a very, very small detail of how they are doing certain things. How can I break that pattern and all that? And my duel with him in Australia was anything could be stated as anything by anybody. But for me, it was a culmination of what I wanted to achieve all my life.
That again, excuse me, that defines you, whether it is white ball cricket, red ball cricket. I have followed your journey from day one, and to see you come back the way you did in white ball cricket. Two questions. Give me a sense, because to overcome pain, and we are talking about bubble life and fatigue and all of it. pain is part of that. That's mental pain. That Australia match, that Sydney match, the way you overcame pain, it is an inspiration to each one of us. And you did it for the country. Give me an insight into that. And the second part is white ball cricket, this comeback. Again, it sort of tells us that everything is possible. Never say never.
Yeah, I think I'll just take this back to a slightly older story here, but see, I started training differently in between 2015-16. I started training differently, meaning I wanted to add some power into it, because the T20 sport was getting into a very power domain sort of a thing. So I trained differently, and what happened was my body has limitations. My hip structure is not that of same as someone else, because I had hip injuries when I was younger, and my hip just couldn't function in the way that it functions for somebody else. If for you it rotates at 180, it doesn't rotate as much for me. So for me to realize all these things, it takes time, right? I'm a cricketer, and most of us are cricketers. We are not into sports science. We are not into exercise science. So when I started training differently, my body initially gave good results, but it started giving up. I had patellar tendon issues. Like, for people that might not understand, my knees got affected first. It went into tendinitis, because of which my hip gave up. Then I had a groin tear in England before the game, and then in Australia when I was bowling 60 overs in Adelaide, my abdomen tore, because all these are interlinked. Before which in 2015 I had a side strain. So who do I really blame? And for someone, and at Sydney, the end of it all, when after the Adelaide test, I had an abdomen tear, grade 3. In Sydney, I was bowling before the game, and I felt like I cannot go on a test match bowling if I had to bowl 100 overs. The question asked to me was whether can you bowl 50 in the first innings and 50 in the second innings. I said, I can bowl beyond pain barriers, because if there is one thing that I will never agree or never doubt about myself, is that I will not back down from a contest. I might die on a cricket field, but I will not back away from a contest. So those sort of injuries, the way things didn't pan out for me in Southampton, the way in Adelaide I gave my heart out. I probably thought I did keep an end tight and win the test match for India that game. And in Sydney, when there were murmurs spoken about how I gave up, it felt like I was being killed from the inside. So the only thing I wanted to achieve in life was to make sure that I go back, die on the cricket field trying to win a game for India, and people change that narrative. The character. If at all Ashwin is a cricketer today, it's because of the fight this dog has. It's not about how much quality this dog has. So I wanted to change that, and every single day in the lockdown when I woke up, I said tomorrow will be a better day. The sun will race, but Ashwin should be prepared for that sun racing and fighting on the field.
Fantastic, absolutely fantastic. I mean, if there's anything you guys watching this show wants to take from this man, take the fight. Not because each of us are fighting our own little battles, and each of us think we are the worse off. And that's only human nature. If you read psychology, you will understand that, you know, there are millions who are far worse off than you and I are. But back to Sydney, you were standing there. You were standing for 3 hours. Bharat told me, Hanuma told me, I've spoken to everybody. You could not even sit. Give me a sense, man. I mean, what, and you were telling me off camera what happened. This I can ask you. Tell me on camera. How did you manage that?
So again, right, every time something happens to my body, right, this was very freakish. It's like I even went to the extent of studying exercise science. What is happening with my body? Why is my body giving up? And then I put everything to bed. Like, I started training, like, we all do exercises in the gym, right? We lift, we do deadlifts, we do squats. I wanted to understand how these are translating into movement patterns on the ground. So I started my gym exercise and working out exercises the way I was playing on the field. And I thought I had put to bed all those sort of injuries and limitations I had, because when I came out, my body felt fresh. And I had put everything to bed, went to Melbourne, the Sydney test was going on. We could draw the test match. We had a chance of winning the test match. And suddenly I turn up on day 5, was it? When the declaration happened, sorry, day 4. So what happens in Sydney, I'm sure you're aware, everywhere else, they'll give you the bowling place just besides the pitch, where there is a pitch. It's hard. But in Sydney, they give you the outer surface, which is full of sand. So because we had bowled for the first 4 days, the footholds were big, and I went and just warmed up and bowled the first ball. My toe landed and the toe stuck inside the hole and my upper body twisted. And I'm like, ouch, that hurt. And one of the hips went down and the other hip went up, and I was wincing in lower back pain, and I didn't know how to do it. And then I went to Nitin, the physio, and I said, it's paining. He said, okay, lie down. And he took a look and they said the left toe is in front and the right toe is in back. So it was that bad. And he kept rotating my hip, got it into position. But whatever said and done, the damage had been done. He gave me a really powerful painkiller. I took the painkiller and kept bowling. It was painful because it took me 2 overs for the pain barrier to cross. I bowled 2 overs at Steven Smith and Manas Labuschagne, just darting the ball so that my body got into, the pain, got used to it. I got used to the pain. And once I bowled the 2 overs, I kept going for 14 overs. I told Ajinkya and Rohit that I cannot stop. If you stop me, I can't bowl again. So I went for 14 overs. And then my body was in pure shape and they declared, and then I went in. Little did I know that I was going to have the worst night of my life. So when I went after dinner, like I was just sitting, stretching, I went after dinner to lie down. My back didn't go down. Like I couldn't go down. So literally I put a towel underneath my back, held my hip up, and then went to sleep. I thought usually with back spasm, if you take a painkiller, the next morning is better. So the next morning I was awake. My mind was telling me to get up, but I couldn't. I couldn't turn left, turn right, or get up. And I kept yelling out. We were in 2 rooms. My kids were there. So my wife sleeps with the kids to give me space to sleep. So I was shouting about 20-25 times before my wife came up. The children were helping me hold my hands, and she just pulled me up and I couldn't get up. So I just got on all fours, and even all fours were paining. So I called Yogesh. Nitin didn't pick up the phone. The other physio, I crawled outside the door, kept yelling for Yogesh. He came, he gave me a medicine, he gave me a painkiller, lifted me and just put me in the shower. So after I put some hot water on my back, it started warming up. And then I don't know how I even went to the game. So it was really painful. Put the bag, and my daughter held my shorts because I couldn't. So she just pushed the shorts up, and as she was pushing my shorts, I was like tearing up in pain. And my wife looked at me and said, "You're going to go and play a game?" I said, "Have to do it." But when I came back, when she called me after the game, I was sitting outside giving that immediate after game interview. My wife sent a message, "You actually did play." So it was quite, and she told me how my daughters were cheering, how they were watching the game. She was teaching them the game. I just felt that particular day, forget about the performances, whatever it is, that particular day in Sydney with pain, with injury, Ashwin could have shirked off. The same place where Sydney, a lot of people felt I shirked off, is where it was meant to happen, and I was so pleased.
Redemption, you have that, and and I was there in Sydney. I did hear the murmurs. All of us got taken in by the murmurs, and then when this happens, you're like, hey, did we do injustice to this man? The jury's out on that one. India goes to South Africa. Again, this whole deal, Ashwin doesn't win us test matches overseas. You've laid it to rest in Australia. Another big challenge, South Africa. You still look at the top of your game. 3-4 years for sure, serving India?
Look, I have that utmost gratitude. I'm extremely grateful to the game itself, because I think the game has given me so much to learn. More than joy, I would say, just given me so much to learn. Like even the stories that I'm taking you through, we all play, but we all live for the memories that we create. So there has been some unbelievable memories in the sport. Even the way, I got selected for the T20 World Cup and all that sort of stuff. I haven't played a lot of games in the last 6 months. So I'm just eager to get out there and play if given an opportunity. And a lot of talk and murmurs will happen about people playing, not playing, and all that. There is one thing that I've learned: if given an opportunity, I will play and make sure that I'm enjoying the sport, but I will keep everything aside. And whatever I have left, I can't really call it and say I'll play 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 1 year, 6 months. Nothing is a guarantee. The pandemic has taught me more than enough, and I just want to play as long as this body and mind is willing me to play on. And every single opportunity is a day for me to cherish. I had lost the joy in 2018-19 season in Australia, literally to say, what the hell are you doing continuing to play this game where I didn't feel like I was enjoying. There was no joy, and I have worked immensely hard mentally, physically, to get the joy back in my life of playing the sport, and I would not give up that particular for any trade-off in life.
You know, I know what, I've had multiple conversations with Rohit on this, the new T20 captain for India, and I know what winning a T20 World Cup or a World Cup means to him, the obsession. And every time I've spoken to him, he's like, individual hundreds don't matter, dada, wo koi farak nahi padta. Ultimately, it's about winning a world trophy for India. Again, in your case, you won a 50-over World Cup, and I was covering that time as well, if you remember. So none of us are old. You are young. I am. Anyway, but is that obsession there? Winning a T20 World Cup, winning something for India, this whole ICC trophy monkey that has now come in?
See, there is sometimes we make statements in life without realizing the value of those statements, and a lot of people say very simple things, but we don't read into them. We just talk about it. We say how great they are because of the accomplishments they do. But one thing that I even more so to say embrace that MS Dhoni used to say is that the process is very important. And I feel somewhere down the line that process is important is something that we need to imbibe and follow on a day-to-day basis to achieve something like that. Look at New Zealand, 2015 runners-up of the World Cup, 2019 runners-up of the 50-over World Cup. Now again in 2020, so 2021 they are the finalists of a T20 World Cup, World Test Championship winners. What are they doing right? They're doing something right that the rest of the world is yet to imbibe. And we talk about how well they play, how likable they are, how sweet they are and all that. But inside all those things, there is an unbelievable and amazing template of commitment to something called planning. Their ruthless planning and execution on the field in an ICC tournament is giving them those results. And if we can imbibe that and get champion players to follow those protocols and processes come what may over a period of time, which happened in 2011 where I saw that team had played for a decade. They got so near yet so far, but eventually that success came. Big success, grand success never comes overnight. I am sure you know it. And in terms of raw material, in terms of talent, in terms of skill, India is second to none. The kind of talent and people that come out and play, I don't even have to talk about it. But it's about understanding the game and keeping on improving and understanding plans and executing them on a day-to-day basis and making it your life over a period of time, which will fetch us the results.
Okay, couple of last questions. One, there's so much talk these days about bubble fatigue and mental health, and you take the Olympics, the Simone Biles headline, for example. In your case, yes, I know Preeti and the kids travel now, so that and I want to ask that question, family. How important has family been in this period to get you through this whole pandemic, and obviously your personal questions, the self-doubt that you went through?
Simple. I told you, if on that Sydney morning, if I didn't have my children and wife with me, I would have not worn the shorts and gone to the game. Just to lighten it up. But let me tell you something, it's not easy. A lot of time people, when the team loses, right, people out there come out and talk about how family, tum log aish kar rahe ho, you're enjoying, there is a lot of fun, come on, play the game. I'll tell you something, a small story that happened in Brisbane. We were not supposed to be in a bubble, and all of a sudden when we went to Brisbane, the Queensland government had different rules, so we were supposed to be locked up in a room. My wife very well knows how difficult it is to travel. She's done this traveling bit on and off for 10 long years now, and we are about to get into our 10th anniversary now. And at Brisbane, we landed, they put us in a hotel room and they said you can't go. And like 10 minutes later, I started to hear some crying noises. It was not like from my children or something. I went and saw and she was crying. She had a massive, burst out of emotions. She said, I don't know what's happening, but I cannot take these hotel rooms anymore. With 2 children in the room, we can't go out. You guys are going to practice. You guys are going to the game. You're getting fresh air, but I have to be inside this room. It just feels too inhuman. I came out for the love that I have for you. Our family needs to be together. We have young children, and that's why I came. But I can't do this anymore. So all I could do was just hold her hands and just stay with her and hear what she had to say. And then, like 2 days later, she was okay and back to normal. We were going to finish the tour and go back home. But this is the extent to which it can get to you. And nobody, I mean, it is very hard to explain. Like they say, they say empathy is standing in somebody else's shoes, but we hardly have any of it from the exterior. It looks fancy. Yes, there is no doubt cricketers are earning, they make money. Absolutely no denying that. But you also need to understand this is a career that's short-lived and people make sacrifices. And ever since the age of 8, as far as I know, I have not lived a normal life. I have given up on several normal things. I'm the only son in my family. I haven't gone back for Diwali for over 27 years. I haven't gone back to a Pongal for 27 years. Birthday wishes are generally on the phone. Nowadays, at least you have these WhatsApp and FaceTime calls where you can see your parents' faces. But my parents had COVID and were serious in the hospital 6 months ago. I haven't seen them for 7 months. These are small things you live for. Yes, the team needs to win. Cricket is a bigger emotion in the country than anything else. But I think empathy is something we can all do better with.
That's the last one, Ash. Again, I mean, the whole family suffered through COVID. You went back home to be with them during the IPL. Again, a lot was said. Ashwin not playing the IPL, not playing T20 cricket. Can you just get that nonsense out of the way?
First of all, I didn't even hear or choose to hear those murmurs then. I'll tell you something. It's a very personal story. My dad and mom, I'm the only son, right? And my dad was a government employee. My mother used to work at Unilever. My mother used to turn up home. Since the age of 9, I know this. She used to turn up home whenever I was home. She used to come at 1:30 in the night, 2:30 in the night, 3 in the night. She used to work overtime all the time because we had to run a family. Thankfully, my granddad had given us a house to live in, a shelter to live in. But otherwise, they always struggled to meet ends. My father and mother, the salary put together used to be 2,000 rupees, and the first SG Gold bat that I got was 3,500. So I'm just going back and thinking what or where they needed to go and stretch their hands out to get their son an SG Gold bat in times when people believed cricket was not going to be a career. And my granddad, every single morning when my father used to ask for financial help, or with my aunt, the first thing that used to come as a question was, is cricket going to really feed him? Better send him to school, focus on education. This was what they had to endure every single day of their life until I got my Tamil Nadu cap in 2006-07. That is when people took aside and started taking notice that my father, taking me like a kangaroo child on his, the petrol tank of his Hero Honda bike, that something had come fruit. And I can't begin to tell you this. My father, when at the age of 12, we were going to play a league game, and these hanging rope balls used to be there, right? So I was just knocking before we were going to leave for the game. My father was getting his dress on a Sunday morning, walking room to room, where I played an amazing pull shot. Pull shot that I got inspired from Ricky Ponting. The ball hit the fridge, it ricocheted. I finished my pull shot, it hit my father flush on the nose, the bat. He started bleeding profusely, my bat was full of blood. He just sank like a sack of potato, and I was scared. I just went and saw him. He got up. There is a hospital at the end of the road. Still it is there. He went straight to the hospital. I didn't know how to react. 12-year-old, he went, stitched his nose up. Some other cut here as well, I think. He just stitched it up, came back, picked up my kit bag, put it on the petrol tank, put me on the backside, took me to the game, 20 kilometers from the house. I played the game, got a 50. He didn't speak to me the entire day, sat there in the sun watching the game. The ground was TA Cycles ground in Chennai. We went back, stopped at the bakery, got me a, some samosa or puff, I can't remember exactly. And that's what he said. For the hurt that I had, if you had made 100, I would have been happier. That should never affect you. Whatever happens to us should never affect you, because you go on the field for accomplishing my dream. So the next time, make sure if you're on 50 when you raise your bat, that your father got hurt this morning and you can play more for your father. Play some for you, play more for your father. And that is like, as a 12-year-old, the only thing I realized was my dad is giving it all here. He had opportunities to go for promotion. He had an opportunity to go to Nigeria, where my aunt works, where he could earn more. Gave everything away just because he wanted to see his son wear the India colours maybe one day without anything. And he gave selflessly, and he was in the ICU. And I don't even need to explain to anyone that why I need to go back. And if those were his last days, and if I hadn't gone back home, and if I couldn't see him, then why am I even a son? It doesn't make any sense. In India, we all want to advance our careers. Lots of people, competition at the top of the game. I agree to everything. But if you can't go back for your father or mother or for your children or for your wife, there is no purpose in living. Because India is the first country in the world that taught the world how important it is to stay together, how important family is. Now, are we forgetting all that? Are we putting that to bed? I don't know.
I don't think much needs to be said after this. I'll end this with two statements. As I said, that Sydney Murmur was heard by me. I got calls that Ravichandran Ashwin was asked to play, he did not play, and I'm putting it on record. And all of us bought into that narrative as well, to a degree, for sure. What's wrong with Ashwin? Is he scared? After hearing this interview, I do think injustice was done. After hearing this, you guys decide if we've been a tad unfair on this man. What he has done, his record speaks for itself. He says numbers don't matter. But what he has also done is, in the last, half an hour, given us something to take back. Don't doubt integrity, don't doubt honesty, don't doubt commitment. That's where it ends for him. And if I take back anything from this particular episode, it is about celebrating a man's passion. It is about celebrating a man's commitment, not to himself, but to the family, more importantly to the game that has made him who he is. Many more such shows, but all I will say is we've still got 3-4 years. He did not mention the number, I will. 3-4 years of Ravichandran Ashwin left. Look at the body, leaner, hungrier, be it in South Africa, be it beyond in the IPL. He still has an IPL title to win, maybe as leader, who knows. But plenty left, plenty left. So all I will say is thank you very much for your time. You've done us proud. Keep doing that, because there's a lot of life lessons from this conversation which I will take back. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Extra time! Extra time!